Alrighty, hello and welcome to lesson 5 of Last Epoch University. In this lesson, we will be covering crafting. So at this point, if you've watched all of the videos, you have learned how gear works, what it looks like. You have also learned how to make a loot filter to make sure you only see the gear that you really want. But how do you make that gear better? How do you make your gear really good? GG, hog level gear. To do so, you will almost certainly need to craft on it. And so that's what we're going to cover today. The very basics of how to do crafting so that you can start working on your gear and making it as good as you'd like it to be. Let's start with what is crafting in LE. It is a way to add affixes to a craftable item. It is also a way to improve the tiers of pre-existing affixes on gear. You can, for example, increase the tier from, say, level or tier 2 to a tier 3, or a tier 3 to a tier 4, etc. You can also improve the roll within a tier. So if you have like a tier 5 item and it rolled relatively low within that tier, you can try to improve it by getting a higher roll within that tier. It's also a way to remove affixes that you don't want, if you're lucky. And it's a way to improve implicit rolls on gear. So if the base type item rolled a poor implicit, you can use crafting to try and improve that as well. So what can you craft on? You can craft on any white, blue, yellow, or purple gear that has not yet been fractured. Fractures will only occur through crafting, so if you have not crafted yet, you do not have a fractured item. You will know when you do fracture it in the crafting system because it will make a sound that you will never forget. Everyone knows the fracturing sound if they play this game for a bit. Exalted affixes, the purple ones, cannot be crafted, but the other affixes on purple gear can. So, for example, grab an exalted out of my handy dandy stash here. Take a look at one. So, for example, this item here has a tier 6 melee lightning damage on it. I could not craft that. I cannot craft tier 5 and above. I craft up to tier 5 once I've hit tier 5. We can't craft any further, and a tier 6 above tier 5 it also only drops in the world, so that can't be crafted on. The tier 4 and the tier 2, however, can be crafted on this item. I can also do all the other things like try to remove an affix, change my implicit, change rolls within a tier, and that actually you can do that on Exalted. So let's say this one's 66 to 80 and I got 74. If I want to be really absurd and try to get from 74 to 80, I could try to do that, but I can't craft any higher up than that tier 6. You also cannot craft at all on uniques, idols, or blessings. Nothing at all, nothing whatsoever. Cannot craft on those. So what you get in the world for those three is what you get. Crafting itself is pseudo-deterministic. Now you'll hear a lot of people, especially that have come over from UE, talk about how crafting in Last Epoch is deterministic. That's not quite right. What they mean is right by that. But a purely deterministic system would mean that whatever you try to get, assuming you have the materials, you would always get. And that is not the case. There are definitely risks in the system. You can get things going very wrong for you. There's a lot of RNG. So the deterministic side of this is you can choose what affixes to put on items. So for example, if I have, let's take a look like this right here. Let's take this item. I've got mana and increased health regen. Prefix and a suffix means I have 2 open slots because there are 4 total affix slots, 1 prefix, 1 suffix. I throw that in the crafting system. I will have the option to craft anything in here, 1 prefix and 1 suffix. I can choose, so it's deterministic what I get on there. What I already have on here, I can also craft on. So if I've got mana here and I try to craft that up, I know I'll get at least a tier 2 mana on here if I'm successful. I am, so I got tier 2. So it's deterministic. I know I'm going to get a tier 2 from a tier 1. If I try to craft armor, and this is a suffix, and I'm successful, I know I'll get armor on there. There's no, like, I try to craft armor and I get, you know, HP. That's the deterministic side, for the most part. That's most of the deterministic side of what the system is. So it's deterministic when it's successful, you get what you want. You can also get a critical success, which is even more successful. It happens relatively rarely, but when you get it, it will increase an additional tier of either the affix you're working on or a different affix on the item. and it will not affect negatively them in any way, so you won't gain instability, which we'll talk about later. But you're not always guaranteed to be successful. This is why it's only pseudo-deterministic. You can fracture the item, and when you do that, you're done crafting, or worse. Again, we'll talk about that soon. You can also removing affixes. We talked about that. Is semi-random. I'll go into more detail on that in a little bit too. Rolls within tiers are random, or possibly semi-random. Changing implicits is semi-random, and glyph hostility is random. Let me let me talk about what makes those semi-random and random when we talk about all those in more detail. But just know that they're not actually deterministic, so that's why, again, this is pseudo-deterministic, not deterministic crafting. Let's talk about fracturing. What is fracturing? I mentioned it as a downside. It's if you're not guaranteed success, you can fracture. Well, what does that mean when you do that? So you'll gain instability when you craft on an item. As it increases, you increase your chance of fracturing that item. What's instability? Instability is added with each successful craft. And items may start with some instability based on the tiers of affixes when the item dropped. And they're always lower than if they were crafted. So, for example, I have these two items over here. This item has not been crafted on. Is a tier 4, a tier 2, and a tier 3. It has 8 instability. It's very low considering it's got 9 tiers already out of a maximum of 20. This item here is a tier 4 and a tier 2. Instability of 5. If I throw this in, let's say I take this in here, I want to craft on it. I think I can craft on this character. I might not be able to. I can't craft this item. Let me actually switch characters. That is what I not consider when I chose this. I'm playing on a low level character who can't craft that high. So let me switch over to a character who can craft that high, like a level 100 character. As soon as the game decides what to do. There we go. Let's take McFluffin here. Grab those items again. There's apparently been crafting already. And we'll start with this one. So we said we have 8 instability. That's from a total of 9 tiers. So that's averaging less than 1 instability per tier. Now if I craft one time on this, let's just craft... I don't even know. Let's do spell damage on it. Make sure we craft it. We have 8 instability. This is going to add 5 crafting instability. You can see right here. But I just put 1 additional tier on, and I went from 8 to 13. So you can see the power of having more tiers already on an item when you get it, and having to do less crafting on the item itself. So, as I just showed, you gain 5 instability when you craft, but there is a glyph of instability which decreases that amount. We'll cover that soon. Runes, if you use runes, they also add instability. So, like, cover the rune of removal. Did I show any other ones here? Anyway, we're gonna cover them in a bit. That should be glyphs, actually. This should be runes. Yeah, rune removal. Why am I going blank on some of these? Hold up. These ones here, rune of shaping, rune of cleansing, rune removal. These all add instability of some level or another. Your chances of fracturing an item are determined by the instability of an item, and the instability of an item, and the tier level of fixes you're crafting on. So, for example, I have got, what do I got here? I say I have 13 instability on this. Let's take this item. This item's a better example. I have 5 instability on this, right? Just take off glyphs altogether. Now I want to craft health on this. That 5 instability equates to 5% chance to fracture this item to not be successful. That's on a tier 1 item because I'll be putting, like, health would be a brand new suffix that doesn't exist right now. That same instability, though, on this tier 2 health gain on block, we only have an 85% chance. If I try to craft our tier 4 here up to tier 5, we only have a 75% chance. Of course, if I crafted on this item, let's put that on. Now I have 10 instability, and I try to craft a new prefix on it. It's now 90% chance. So it equates directly to the instability you have on a tier 1. But as I try to go up to things that have higher tiers already, the health would be up to tier 2 and are 85. You know, block 80, endurance all the way down to 70% chance to succeed, and a 30% chance to fracture that item. Success chance can be improved with the Glyph of the Guardian. We'll cover that in more detail later. There are also 3 levels of fracturing. So in this one, we're only seeing 1. You're seeing I have a, actually we're seeing 2 here. You see I have a 25% chance of a minor fracture and a 5% chance of a damaging fracture. What does that mean? Well, a minor fracture means you can no longer craft the item. It locks it in place. It doesn't do anything negative to it. You just are done crafting if you get a minor fracture. You cannot change that. You cannot reverse a fracture. Once you fracture an item, it is locked forever. A damaging fracture, however, counts both as a minor insofar as it locks the item in place, but also reduces a tier or tiers of a single random effects by 1 to 2. So if I were to, for example, if I were to damaging fracture this item, it would choose one of these at random and reduce it by 1 to 2. I don't believe it can actually go below 1, so I think the health would be safe. This one could drop to 1, and this one could drop all the way to tier 2. Now, if I were to get a destructive fracture, it's the minor fracture plus reduces the tier of 2 or more affixes by 1 to 2. So that would be particularly bad if you got that. Because it's going to drop off a large number, potentially, of tiers of your item and probably make it pretty much useless or certainly not very powerful anymore. So how do you craft? What do you actually do to craft an item? First thing you're going to do is you're going to press F to open your crafting screen, as I've done here. If I press F, opens the crafting screen. It also opens your inventory so that you're ready to craft. You're going to put an item into the forge, like so. It is then going to display to you all the affixes that are currently on the item. I have, again, 1 prefix here, 2 suffixes with different tiers. The tiers are right here. And then I'm going to choose whatever shard I want, whatever affix I want to add to it. From there, I can choose to add a support item if I'd like to. Or if I don't want to actually put on an affix or increase an affix, I want to do something else. I also have these other modifiers I can do. Again, we'll talk about these and the support very soon. Oh yeah, and also, if you want to know the likelihood of your crafting successful, you will find that out right here, as well as how much instability it's going to add. And when you're done that, you press forward to craft the item, and hopefully it'll be successful. Let's see, will this succeed? Yes, we're successful. Congratulations, us. Okay, I just mentioned shards. What are shards specifically? Shards are the crafting material that determines the type of affix being crafted. In the window, it is all of this stuff. Whatever is in here in this list are your shards. By the way, if they're grayed out, that means you can't craft them. In this case, it's because we already have 2 suffixes. It's not, if it's this color, then you can craft it. And if it's this yellow color, that means you already have it on the item and you can craft up that affix that's already on the item. You can acquire these shards in 2 different ways. They drop randomly as drops in the world, like these little like orange things. I can drop one on the ground and show you. Let's take out one of these. Gonna take it out. Not gonna take it out. I have to shift click. I never take these out, so maybe I can't show you. I know there's a way to do this. Oh, I gotta take it from here. That's right. There we go. I got it. Okay. Grab this, throw on the ground. It looks like this. Add a health shard. It's just like this little orange thing. And whatever it is, it'll show the name of it. You can also get them by shattering, using a shattering rune on an item with the desired affixes. And I'll show that later how it works. Now, shards will vary in rarity as well. Some are difficult to acquire and others will drop very often. You can see, like, in my own list here, I have some that are like, and literally in the thousands. I have almost 3,500 health shards. But I only have 31 endurance threshold, 111 chance to shock attackers, etc. All right, let's get into the modifier items. So we had these two lists over here. We had the modifiers, and then we had the support, right? So we're going to talk about the left-hand side one. These only drop in the world except for the Shattering Runes. The Shattering Runes drop in the world, but they also can be bought from a vendor for 2,000 gold. The vendor will have a semi-random or random number of shards every time you visit. And every 15 minutes, they refresh their inventory, and you can buy more. All right, what does the Rune of Shattering do itself? It is used to acquire more shards. In doing so, you will destroy the item, though. Every tier of an affix that is on an item represents a chance to acquire that affix or that shard. You can get more than one shard from tier 2 plus affixes, as each one is a chance. You are guaranteed at least one shard total, but not one of each affix. So, in practice, what does that look like? So I've got this item again. It's got tier 2 health gain and block. It's got tier 4 endurance. It's got tier 2 health. This represents if I use this Rune of Shattering here, which will destroy the item, so bear that in mind. You will lose the item. I have 2 chances, and I'm not sure what the actual chance rate is. It seems to be somewhat low. But they have 2 chances to get health gain and block, 4 chances to gain endurance shard, and 2 chances to get a health. So let's see what happens when we do this. We're guaranteed to get at least one of these shards, and we're guaranteed no more than that. We break it down. We got 2 health gain and block and 4 endurance. So we did pretty well there. We got like 6 of 8 total tiers, something like that. That was pretty good. So now those are shards that are in our inventory. When you fracture something or when you shatter something, it goes directly into it. If you pick it up in the world, it'll go into your inventory, and then you press store crafting material or store crafting items to put it into your forge. Okay, what about Rune of Refinement? So this item rerolls affixes within tiers. Is this one here? Let's toss this in here. This item has a tier 4, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Rune of Refinement is not going to change those numbers for those tiers. What it is going to do is going to change the rolls with them. So we can see, like, for example, increased damage over time right now has a 36 to 46% roll range, and it rolled low. It rolled 37. Increased spell damage is 7 to 14, and it also rolled relatively low at 9. Chance to slow attackers is a 31 to 40. It rolled 36, so right in the middle. Necrotic resistance actually rolled high. There's an 18 to 25, and it rolled 23. So when I do a Rune of Refinement, I'm going to actually re-roll all of those. You can't just re-roll one at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and put a garden here just to make sure that we don't fracture it. And we're going to see what happens. We got right now a 37, 9, 36, 23. Find it. We now have a 39, 10, 31, 23. Again, it's going to be within those rolls, within that range, but the numbers will change. Note that it does not affect the implicits, so the intelligence and ward per second are not affected by Rune of Refinement. We will cover in just a few moments what actually does affect. Whoops. Okay, and do bear in mind, that's 2 instability. In fact, everything but Rune of Shattering, I believe, adds 2 instability as far as runes go. Rune of Removal. This one, it can be a love or hate relationship. It removes 1 affix on an item, pseudo randomly, and that pseudo randomly comes up. What's going to happen? We're going to use a Rune of Removal right here, and we're going to remove 1 of these affixes like completely. It could be the damage over time, it could be spell damage, it could be chance to slow attackers, it could be necrotic resistance. How the Rune of Removal currently, this may change, but currently determines what will be removed, or what the likelihood of something being removed is it accounts for how many tiers of each affix exist, and then accounts for the total number. So the total number of 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 tiers, and let's say damage over time as a tier 4, right? So there's a 4 out of 10 chance this will remove damage over time. There's a 1 out of 10 chance it will remove spell damage, a 2 out of 10 it'll remove chance to slow attackers, and a 3 out of 10 chance it will remove necrotic resistance. So let's go ahead and see what it does. It removed the tier 4, the most likely one to enter. The damage over time is now gone. Added 2 crafting instability, so this has got a higher instability. But if we were looking to get rid of damage over time, we are successful. If not, we may have bricked our item. It might not be worth our time anymore. So bear that in mind. It is definitely a risky proposition to choose to use rune removal, but sometimes it's worth it. If an item is, in some cases, it has an affix that's so bad that you can't possibly use it, and it's on a fixed slot that you need. But if you were to actually remove it, it would make the item extremely valuable for crafting purposes. It may be worth it to use rune removal, but be careful with these, because you can break your item if you remove the wrong affix. Rune of Cleansing is an item with honestly limited use. What it does is it removes all affixes on an item completely. It turns it into a white item with no affixes. It reduces instability to between 5 and 15, which honestly is kind of high. Starting with a white item with 5 to 15 instability is a challenging proposition to craft up. Whites themselves are challenging to craft up, and for that reason is not recommended for high level crafting. But if you get like a really good base with really terrible modifiers, you want to use that base, say during leveling, it can be worth it during that period of time. Last rune is the Rune of Shaping. This is actually the newest rune. It was added very recently. This is the one that rerolls implicits on an item. And these are also pseudo-random in a different way. So, for example, this catalyst we've been working on has 9 intelligence and 25 ward per second. That intelligence is extremely low, and the ward per second is pretty low. So let's say those are important stats for us, and we really want those to be a lot higher. And so we can take a shot at it with the Rune of Shaping. Click on this. Now, bear in mind that currently the way the Rune of Shaping works is it is weighted towards average rolls. That means if you have a relatively high roll on your implicit and you're hoping to get a very high or max roll, your odds are very much not in your favor. This is not pure RNG. Your odds wouldn't be in your favor in pure RNG environment. In a weighted towards average environment, they're even less in your favor. So do bear that in mind, because every time you use one, you add 2 crafting instability to the item. Let's try it here. Let's go ahead and do a Rune of Shaping. We got a 9 and 25. We're going to shape it. And we now have a 12 and 24. So we're better, although maybe not especially better. And you can see we actually went towards the average on intelligence. Okay. Let's talk about support items now. That's the right-hand side, the Glyphs. These are very valuable for high-level crafts. You are absolutely going to want to use these if you want to have any shot at tier 20s or high tiers. These only drop in the world. You cannot buy them. And early in your playthrough, you'll probably find they're at a premium. They're fairly scarce. But as you play more and more of the end game, and longer, you'll get to the point to where these are not at a premium. For example, I've played a very long time, and I have over 3,000 of each of these. But early on, you will definitely find that you don't have as many as you like. These can be used with shards or with runes, so bear that in mind. They tend to be more valuable with shards, because shards will roll 5 instability and runes 2. And if you roll them with shards, oops, actually, yeah. I'm getting a little ahead of myself there on stability, though. Okay, so yeah, because the Guardian and the stability can both be used on shards or runes. They tend to be more valuable on, well, especially the stability tend to be more valuable on shards. I'll get into that like right now, though. Okay, so Glyph of Stability reduces instability from successful crafts by up to 60%. Not a guaranteed 60%, up to 60%. So, for example, a shard craft with instability will add 2 to 5 instability instead of 5 instability. So it can do nothing. It can just give you 5 instability like you would have had. Or it can do really well and give you 2, or something in between. It can't ever go worse, but it potentially can go not better. If you do this on a rune instead of a shard, you'll get 1 to 2 instead of 2. This should say Glyph of the Guardian. Oops. I'm actually going to go ahead and change that, so not to confuse anybody. Glyph of the Guardian, there we go. Glyph of the Guardian does something quite a bit different. It reduces the fracturing tiers, the chance of fracturing tiers, by 1. So for example, if your craft chances on an item are 47% chance to be successful, 25% chance for a minor, 25% chance for a damaging, and 3% chance for destructive, and you use a Glyph of the Guardian, you will change your success chances to 72% chance for success, 25% for minor, and 3% for damaging. 72% is 47% plus 25. That's the minor switching into a success. And then the damaging goes to a minor, 25, 25, and then the destructive goes to damaging, that goes to 3. Show you a real world example. This one actually is perfect because we've got some decent amount of instability around it. Say I want to do a necrotic resistance on this to a tier 4. If I were to do that with no support whatsoever, I have a 66% chance for success, 25% chance for a minor, and 9% chance for damaging. I will put on a guardian, and it will change to a 91% chance for success and 9% chance for a minor, because that 25% minor became chance for success, and the 9% damage went to minor. Here's my basic crafting strategy to get you started on how to craft, and this will carry you a long way. There are some more advanced techniques you can do for sure, especially if you start dealing with runes. But just for a basic, here's how to craft in a way that will get you relative success. This is what you can do. Try to start with an item that has a large number of tiers the desired affixes, because it will be much lower in instability per tier than crafting. The better an item you start with, the better your chances to have a very successful high tier item when you're done crafting. From there, start with stability glyphs, because you will, of course, lower the instability that you're adding on every craft. This will give you further chance for success, as your risk is not increasing by as much each time you craft. Do this for as long as you're comfortable with the risk, because you will be taking on risk by using instability over guardians. I generally go to about 80% chance success. So, on this item here at 66%, I would be absolutely using guardians. On a necrotic resistance. I think if let's see, put this on here. Yeah, this is 81% chance. This one, I might use a stability. I might not too, depending on just how important it is that I don't fracture the item. It depends. It's very dependent, but if you generally use like 80-ish% as your example, and if you're like very risk averse and that's like just too risky for you, that's totally cool too. Just use stability as far as you're comfortable with, and that'll give you more success than if you just started with guardians. Once you're at that point where you're no longer comfortable, switch to guardian glyphs and use guardian glyphs for the rest of the craft for however long you want to go. There's no reason not to use stability or in guardian glyphs unless you have no choice, as if like i.e. you just don't have any. Honestly, if the item is really good and like let's say you're starting new or you have a soul self-found character, you don't have that many and the item is really good, I would forego crafting until I have stability and guardian glyphs that I need to craft on it. I would only ever craft without those glyphs on an item that I don't care that much about long term. They do drop a lot, so don't worry too much about saving them. That's all I want to do. There's something else I thought I was thinking about for strategy. Oh yeah, let's just talk really quickly about strategy as far as the damaging stuff, right? So there's always a possibility that you'll damage an item if you go far enough. Like here I have a chance for damaging. Again, this depends on your risk level, your risk tolerance, so to speak. But personally, if I get above a 10% chance of damaging an item and I don't have an alternative item to work with, I will likely not push it any further. Now let's just assume I have a guardian glyph on here too, because I wouldn't be doing this without a guardian glyph. I just have a guardian glyph. If I'm using a guardian glyph and I've gotten to the point where I've gotten damaging and destructive on here, that's what I generally worry about. At the same time, if you're someone who's fairly bullish about crafting, even if you get a destructive, oftentimes the penalty is really not that large. It's 1 or 2 tiers. The reality is that statistically it's in your favor to push when you start seeing damaging fracture up there. So if you're okay with a little bit of risk, your reward will be greater if you do push. Alternatively, if you have 2 relatively similar items, you can use those and push those both up and see which one goes higher. And that could also help to mitigate some of your risk, assuming you can get 2 similar items. Did I say destructive? Am I damaging? Or are you talking about you guys are doing there? Anyway. Okay, that covers everything for this particular session. I did say destructive. Okay, yeah, I meant damaging. Yeah, it's very hard to get destructive, by the way. It's extremely hard to get destructive. If you get destructive, you were pushing it really hard. and should probably be pretty proud of yourself for getting that far. Okay, I don't see any questions directly in chat. So we'll go ahead and end it here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this guide was very, very beneficial for you. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the comment section. You can also feel free to join us on Twitch and ask questions there. I stream 5 to 6 days a week. And we also have a Discord if you'd like to ask questions there. I will post the Twitch and Discord links in the description. Also, keep an eye out for future L University classes, as they will be coming out just about one a day for probably the next week or so, and maybe longer. Thanks again for watching. Have a great time in LE, and I'll see you all again real soon.